Since we're still in the topic of the eclipse, I decided to spend a few minutes, I probably spent like 15-20 minutes just playing around with these concepts that I thought might look interesting. So this video is going to be showing you this as a sort of like a short tutorial, but you can learn a few concepts and maybe techniques as well. Now, this is another one that's going to require a bunch more time for the tutorial, but a bunch of you liked the post that I made, so we'll see when that one comes out as well. All right, so let me just open this Fusion composition in which I built these. As you can see, it's pretty simple and it just has a few masks and a bunch of keyframes, and that's what made this effect work. So if you wanted to build this from scratch, the first thing you will need is your background node. In this case, I also use the background node for the animation. So we're gonna start the background with maybe this color, which is the same. I'm not gonna animate this yet. I'm gonna animate this after we have a few more things. Then the next thing that you will need is to add you can use an ellipse and then a background node, but in this case I use a S ellipse just because. And then S render like that. If we connect these, a new merge node will show up. And now if I press 2 here, we can see that. I'm gonna make these smaller. So I'm gonna press equal right here, and that's gonna create the expression box. And now we can adjust both of them at the same time. It's gonna keep its shape. One thing that I added on the one that you saw was the sort of like edge or like distort or displacement. And a quicker way to do it, if you don't want to use an actual distort or displace node, you can use the paper effect. But for some reason, it doesn't show up when I actually look it up on the tools right here. So you have to go to templates right here in the effects section. And then here you will find paper or search for it and then use the paper edge effect. After you add this here, you will have that there, and we're gonna get rid of the shadow by setting these at 0.5 and then the softness to 0. Now we don't have that shadow anymore. Now what I did here is that you can play around with the border size if you want, and also the contrast of it. And what I did was I used the edge randomize to sort of like animate the sort of like the sun itself, right? Because the sun is always moving a little bit. Well, a lot, probably. All right, so we're just gonna create a keyframe right here at 0, and then at the end, we're just gonna set these up to be another number right here. So if we take a look, then we can see there's a small movement. And if you make the change bigger, then the movement is gonna be faster. Now, the next thing that I added was a glow effect, and you can play around with any type of glow that you want. And then I set the glow to 100. That way we have that extra glow right here. You can play with the size if you want, but if you adjust the glow here, I mean the glow value, it will just take over our shape and we're not going to be able to see it. If you want, you can use the merge under. I noticed that they have a different look if you use the merge under like these and the normal. They have a little bit of a different look. So it's up to you, obviously. And then we're going to have our sun already right here. The next thing that I did was I added a background node with an ellipse, and that's gonna be our moon in this case. And I'm just gonna make these smaller, a little bit smaller than our actual shape, like these, and I actually adjust the soft edge a little bit. So we're just gonna make these like that. This is what we're gonna use for the moon, and we're gonna animate the path of it. Right now, nothing happens because we have to mask this out later on. So I'm gonna do these. I'm gonna create a keyframe for the center right here. And at the end, well, what I did was at 60, I set these up to be in the middle. Now, if you want these to last longer and stay longer, you will have to adjust the spline tool or add like another keyframe, maybe here at 50 and then at 75 so that the moon stays in the middle. But in this case, we're just gonna do these like that. The movement right now, it's pretty linear. If you want it to stop, you can use the spline tool and then adjust these. There, press F, and then we can adjust it in and out of these like that. Although the actual eclipse is not gonna be like that slow, but just so that we can see the effect, that should do. Okay, here we're gonna press Ctrl C on this ellipse, and then I'm gonna press Shift Alt V, And then I'm going to connect these as a mask. Now, these merge node, we need to go to settings and then multiply these, apply the mask inverted. And then when we go to center, well, let me check this other thing here, what I did. Yeah, the mask is inverted right here. This is what I did here. So on this instance, we're going to de-instance the soft edge. And I'm going to set this up to be 0.2. Although it doesn't appear to have that much of an effect, if we get rid of these, you will see that it does have a little bit of an effect. Okay, now the next, you can already leave it like that if you want. It does sort of like play, or it sort of like works already. We're gonna create a keyframe for the color, and then we're just gonna make these really dark as soon as it gets to the place right here. And then at the end, I'm just gonna add that same color again, which was, we just copy that color. Go to the end. Press, there we have it. Now, it doesn't make sense that the color starts changing before the shape gets in front of the sky, the sun, right? So we're gonna have to adjust these so that when we see it right here, maybe at 14, then we can select all of these. And if we make these bigger, we can see the values right here. Well, the time, and set this up to 14. Like that, that's when it starts. And then we can also do the same by letting it be back to normal here at 100. So we're just gonna set this up to 100. Now the sun is gonna go back, so it looks a little bit more realistic. Now another thing that I wanted to see if I could make it a little bit more like affected more. And that's what I did with this second ellipse, right? So for this one, what I did was I created an instance of this instance, just Control C, and then with it selected, you can press Control Shift V. And now we're just gonna actually de-instance the width and the height. And we're gonna make these a lot bigger. Let me see if it's actually letting me change it. It's not. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to de-instance, not add an expression. There we have it. I made this bigger like that. Then I set the paint mode to maximum. And then I actually also de-instance the border width and the soft edge. For the border width, I'm gonna make these be really small, like -0.2. And at the same time that the background has the keyframes, I'm gonna also start animating the border width. Right here, 15, then at 60, this is gonna be back to 0. And if you don't want it to be at 0, you can leave it like that as well. And then at 100, which was that keyframe, we're gonna bring this back to 0. So now everything is becoming a lot darker, and it looks like there's an extra layer of effect of our moon right here. If you don't want these to be completely like that, I mean, you can always play around more to get to the result that you want, right? And then the last thing that I did was, like, after a little bit, I thought, well, let me just play around with a bunch of rays and see what comes up from that. So I added a ray or a light rays. If you add the rays, it looked pretty weird because it was just sort of like a glow or an extra glow effect. So the light rays, what they did was that they added an interesting effect. But first we need to adjust a few things here, like increase the threshold and the length, maybe like that. Soften it, decrease the brightness so that it's not that bright. And you can also play around with the color, try to make it a little bit reddish maybe, or yellowish, like that. So yeah, these one is a lot more just like up to you, just play around with the values that you want. And if we take a look at these, you can see that the rays disappear as well. There's also the light rays effect that come from the open effects section, I think. Let's see. Maybe it's this one. No, that's the same one. There's like a section here where you can find already made templates that are light rays. The lens flares. There it goes. So if you want to, you can also try to play around with the lens flare, and that will make the effect look a little bit more interesting as well, right? And let me see if I add some noise to it, not fast noise, but like film grain, if that made it look interesting. That, just random seeds. It doesn't look that great. I'll have to adjust a few more things probably for that. So yeah, you can probably add the texture or like an image of the moon here if you want to do these. I just thought it would be a little fun experiment to see what if I could actually made it like look sort of realistic, right? And there's a lot of more things that you can do with these. You can probably make these smaller if you want it, so that the light rays don't adjust or don't affect the sun as much, and you still have some sort of like remain of the sun right here, like that. And then you can play around animating the glow. Maybe not there, but like just, yeah, I'm just screwing it up right now, just destroying it basically. But yeah, that is basically the effect. A few keyframes, a few notes with some effects, and a few extra things that you can add to play around with it. So yeah, that is it. I just wanted to make a quick video sharing this little experiment. So if you want to do this yourself, if after you do it, you'll probably end up learning a couple of things, and therefore increasing your DaVinci Resolve Fusion knowledge and abilities. Make sure to like these and maybe leave a comment. That way the YouTube algorithm keeps showing it to people. And make sure to check out the PaperFoldFX if you want to create or add PaperFoldFX to your elements, or if that's something that you might find useful. And also the split screens toolkit. So yeah, that is it for this video, and I'll see you in the next one here in SUALVI. Bye.